Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. I've got a really special guest today, and that is Lisa Hubbard. Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to the team. So Lisa has joined us as a CDC certified divorce recovery and transition coach, and she's an ICF career coach as well. So we're really excited to have her on board. Lisa, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Well, firstly, that was a mouthful for first thing in the morning. So well done, you. I'm very excited to be part of the team. Thank you for the lovely welcome. I come to Equal X's with a bit of life experience in the divorce and separation space. I'm a child of divorce, a rather horrid, high conflict divorce. And then from there, I met my first husband at 16. We married a few years later, and then I divorced him at 29. And then a few years after that, really more recently, actually, it's 3 or 4 years ago now, my then life partner of nearly 17 years surprised me with he wanted to leave scenario. We have a lovely 12-year-old son between us, so I am also a mother of a divorced child. So I have a few fingers in a few pies.
Yeah,
exactly. So I've got the experience.
Many people's shoes, hey? You've walked in many people's
shoes. Exactly. So on the other side of that, I first trained as a coach for the corporate sector about 20 odd years ago now, and have always coached alongside my corporate roles, whether it's developing teams or business coaching. And then when I went on to my maternity hiatus, I did a lot of career coaching as well, helping the sisterhood, as I used to call it, way back then. So I've always had a passion for helping people thrive or find their purpose or their drive. So when my most recent experience of separation came up, and I was actually really, really broken, I didn't know about this thing called divorce coaching. But when I was Googling grief, I came across divorce and grief and divorce coaching, and a couple of years later, here I am. Well, sorry, it's a long story, but it's a lifetime of experience.
Oh, absolutely. And so many people are going to be able to relate to your experience. They really are. Absolutely. And so why have you joined Equal X's and the Equal Group?
Well, I've joined Equal X as an equal group because you guys are a fantastic team. I really love the culture here. So from a professional basis, that's been a big drive. But the other key reason is I just love what you do. It's what I want to do. It's about helping people when they're in the midst of overwhelm, confusion or guilt, get through some challenging times out the other side. So, what you guys are leaders in the market. You guys, us guys, are leaders in the market, particularly in New Zealand. Nobody's doing it like you've been doing it. So I've had my eye on you for a wee while, Bridget.
Well, the wonderful thing is that a lot of people are now realizing how we can benefit them through this process, whether it's amicable or acrimonious, and working with individuals, isn't it? And couples as well. It's and we really get the positive and sustainable outcomes that they need, and we just love what we do.
Huh? We do. We just need to, let more people know about it. Like I didn't know about. I'm a fan of coaching, and I didn't know about it. So, and when I got a coach, I Googled coaching, divorce coaching, and I was very stuck at that point in time in my own journey. And I ended up getting a coach, and she actually, while I had high expectations, she blew my world. She changed my world. More importantly, I think she changed I'd like to think I was doing a really good job as a mum through my divorce journey, but I think she definitely enhanced my son's life, given her experience and recommendations, or actually the questions she asked me.
And you having to be accountable to her.
Yes.
Both decisions. And what do you think it would have looked like if you hadn't worked with a divorce coach during your journey?
I think I'd probably still be there. I'm 3.5 years into or out of my journey now. Potentially, I would still have some little tentacles tied to my history. So I think it would have taken a lot longer to find my feet. Definitely would have taken a lot longer to find myself. I don't think I'd be here and doing something I'm incredibly passionate about. And I think it would have just been a lot harder, harder. It would have taken longer. It would have been a lot harder. It would have been a lot more lonely than it already was.
I was going to say, you feel alone, don't you, when you're going through this?
There's a lot of minutes, isn't there? There's a lot of minutes in the night, at 4 o'clock when you're on the floor of the bathroom and floods of tears, trying not to let your children hear, and you're watching every minute to get just for the sun to come up. It can be an incredibly happy space.
I can relate. I was ringing up my poor father who lived in Melbourne at 1 a.m. in the morning. Dad, I can't do this anymore.
Exactly.
And I don't think, you don't realize the extent even going through an amicable divorce can have on the family, but also the wider community, friends, and also, for example, who's going to be friends with who if a couple splits, and what does that look like? That causes a lot of conflict in itself, doesn't it? I think.
Exactly. And even when there's no conflict with it, it's lucky my ex and I really strived. And we still strive. I mean, it's an ongoing journey to have an amicable breakup. And our friends were fantastic. Nobody wanted to take sides. Everybody wanted to be supportive. But invariably, you interact differently, and you have your children at different times when they've got different things, social things on. And they don't, as much as friends who are in happy relationships try and support you, and they do a wonderful job, there's still things you just don't know until you're in it.
That's right.
It's like childbirth.
That's right.
There's just things you don't know about childbirth, and nor should you know about it until you're in it. So,
except the epidural. Have the epidural. From experience of doing it 4 times. So, and you're you love all of it, but you have a real passion, don't you, for transformation, don't you, and transforming people from. And what we love about our job is, we see people right at the start of the process, and invariably they are crying, and we should be taking shares in a tissue company. And as you go through it, people change in such a positive and great way, don't they?
And they do. And it's, I do. I'm really passionate about that space. And I think that comes from my corporate background, or just my, I've always mentored young people. I just love that space of when people find something in themselves and go on to do what they want to do. It's always been a driving force for me. And even in business, right? If you get people to find their sweet spot in business, and they go on to do amazing things in a business. But I felt really embarrassed that I was divorced. There's such a negative connotation with
even the word, isn't it?
I know. It's just like, it's just like failure.
That's the big word.
And I just thought, actually, that it doesn't have to divorce. I don't want divorce to define me as a negative thing.
Yeah.
While I'm incredibly disappointed and hurt and all of the things, surely there must be an opportunity in there. I'm a bit older. I'm quite old, really, but I've hopefully got a long time ahead of me still.
Not that old.
Quite old. And I want to be, I want to be able to look back, take those great things that were in my life, learn from the things that weren't so great. And then I realized that we have this canvas in front of us that we can create. We can put all the good things in. And, I'm determined to be living my best chapter yet. I've had great chapters. And I think to help people find that, to find hope, because I found it, I don't know about you, I found it really difficult to be hopeful again, to find joy, all of those things sound very cliche. Did you find that?
Over your head? Yeah, the big black cloud that never seemed to go away, morning and night, the whole day. It was just there and it never went. And, the difficulty was also, you would find, well, I would find, and I'm sure you were the same, as managing your emotions. And it was minute to minute, virtually, minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day. And it's not called a roller coaster ride for no reason, is it?
Yeah. There's the emotion side of it. And what I didn't realize until, I'd come out of it and until actually I was with a divorce coach, is there's a process to it as well.
Yeah.
So you've got your emotions that go like this and through it and all over it. But there's actually, you need to make some big decisions that affect, your life in the future. And if you have children, the children's life in the future.
At start as you want to, work through, you want to start the process in terms of on a positive note and continue that right to the end of the separation, because at the end of the day, if you've got children, you're going to have to be in each other's lives forever, whether it's kids getting married or christenings or whatever. And you want to think of your child or children at 25 and saying positive things about mum and dad separating to other people. No regret. No. So let's talk more about what you've actually learnt from your journey.
Ah, yes. We have a slide prepared for that one. As I touched on, I learned that there is a process to divorce, that, there are certain things that need to be done and actioned, preparing your financials, your pulling together your shared marital assets, thinking about your parenting plan, all of the details. There are all of those things. The house may need to be sold. Where's your debt at? What do you owe? All of those things. There is an actual process. And there is this emotional journey that runs along parallel to it. And I didn't realize when I was in it that it was very much combined for me. And I was making decisions, and they ended up being quite costly decisions while I was in that state. Had I realized that actually, let's just put together a checklist of the things you need to do to prepare to go to your lawyer, then I think that would have made the journey that much more simple and I think less stressful as well, because I found it very overwhelming.
Yeah, and for example, I made the big mistake, and many women do, is feeling, particularly when you've been the caregiver, I need to provide a home for my child. I need to have a house, and because of coming back to the feelings of, particularly if you were the initiator, I don't want this to affect my children at all, which is obviously impossible, as we learned as we went through the process, and is actually committing to buying a house when hadn't even signed the separation agreement.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a mistake that many people make, particularly women, the emotions overriding what actually is good decisions. So bad decisions being made. And
I was the opposite. So I was the one that was left, and it was quite a shock to me. So I was still in, I think, shock space, and then making a decision to leave the family home. Not that I wanted to, but coincided with also being made redundant, and we lived next door to my beautiful in-laws. And there just came a point where I felt really, really surrounded by it, and I needed to get out, and my ex wanted to move back into the family home. So I agreed to some things at that time, whereas I probably just should have, with the benefit of hindsight, it might have been more valuable just to stay put, get my thinking in order, have a plan, and then consider the plan before I, made those decisions. The good thing is you learn from those decisions, right? It all worked out fine in the end, but.
And we're all human. That's the thing. Like, it's okay to not be okay during this process, because otherwise it wouldn't be at the top of the stress continuum with bereavement, wouldn't it? I mean, this is exactly akin to bereavement, except in most cases they're still around. They're still alive and kicking,
Yeah.
So
I could make a comment there, but I won't. It's not very. It can be more challenging. It just means that the grief goes on. Is that a good save?
Well, the stats say that on average it takes 3 years for people to get through the process, at least. So if you're out there and feeling like you're all over the place, realize that is very normal. 1 minute you might be crying, 1 minute you might be laughing, and you're making rash decisions, and then regretting them, and that's where the likes of ourselves can help you through that.
Yeah. Especially like a platform. One of the other things that is really, I'm really proud of, even though I didn't have anything to do with creating it, that we offer, is that our platform that runs along, for those of you who don't know, runs alongside our coaching, is available for 9 months. And that's because we get most people through in that space of time. They get the momentum going, we keep them accountable. So while there's always emotional healing that needs to be done and may still need to be done as you move forward, that process being done not quickly, but in good time is really great.
And that's why working with us, we have trained in this area and obviously experienced it. And for us, we add value. Part of what we do is making sure that we show up for you. You can call us and, if you've got a question, even we're not having a coaching session. So in return, you need to be accountable for actually showing up as well and doing the work, because it's your story, it's your life. We're there to guide you, but we're not living in your life. That's so
That's very true. Probably leads me on to the next point that I learned, that often one person is further ahead in the journey than the other one. So even when it's amicable, somebody has thought about it for a lot longer, both in terms of evaluating where the relationship is at and whether it's one that they want to maintain or not, and all of the intricacies around that, potentially trying to fix the situation or fix themselves or deal with the guilt, all of that. They're ahead of the game than the person who receives the information. So they can also be ahead of the game when it comes to that process of organising, having
they might have prepared months or years in advance. When I'm talking to clients, I liken it to a running race. The initiator has run the running race, they've passed the finish line, and the dumpee is at the start of the running race, hasn't even started, feeling blindsided.
Yeah, exactly.
And overwhelmed.
And within that space, that's where there's so many complexities in there. One, the one who has been dumped is dealing with the shock and the grief and trying to understand it. They're in that space, and the one who's doing the moving on is ready to talk about, shared custody, etc. And when you've never considered being having shared custody of your child before, the shock and is just so great. But I think it also means that certainly some of the clients that I've seen, they can't understand how the person who's done the leaving isn't showing grief, isn't upset, or has moved on so quickly. But it's, I point out, well, it's not necessarily that they didn't feel those things; they potentially felt them earlier on.
Well, women leave emotionally 2 years before they leave physically. Absolutely, that they go through that while still being in the relationship. And I think too, unfortunately, couples on average take about 6 years to do anything about their issues. And by that time, pretty much the horse is bolted if it's left for that long.
Yeah.
But,
Definitely.
it's difficult for both partners, whether it's amicable or high conflict, it's difficult. And whether you're the initiator or not, or it's mutual, it's still hard.
It's still really hard, and I remember I spent a fair bit of time trying to understand how could he, feel like this? How could he be moving on, and what I thought was so quickly? All of those things, which really was a waste of energy.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd done his grieving and his confusion and his journey just earlier. And just because he wasn't where I was at, it's kind of irrelevant. There were just more important things that I could have been focusing on. So don't beat yourself up, people, if you're trying to understand where they're at.
That's right. And don't spend hours trying to analyze and reconcile what they've done. No. What's done is done, and two people need to really both want to be in a relationship, not just one.
Yeah, exactly. And I know where I kind of learnt, and while this isn't in my points that I learnt, I think it's kind of a key one. I realized that actually I don't want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with me. End of story. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to, try and, even though I think it's probably natural to try and do all of those things and important in your healing process. But when I went through all of that, at the end of the day, it was like, actually, when it comes down to it, Lisa, do you want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with you? No.
Yeah.
Clear that space for what I hope will be. I mean, I've had great love in my life. And now there's going to be even greater love because, I've learned a whole lot of things. I plan on applying them. I've got very high standards.
You are a catch. You are a catch. So if there's anyone out there, yeah, huge queue.
Here we go. No. Moving right along, she says, please. So the third point that I learned was that there is a difference to parenting when you're in a relationship than there is to co-parenting when you are separated. And I learned this one the hard way.
Tell us more about how you learned that the hard way, because it's a very common thing that happens, particularly when predominantly the mothers are the main caregivers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was, and again, we had an amicable situation. And for the record, amicable can still be really challenging, just in different ways. So my son was going through a challenging time. So I thought, because that's what he was showing me when he was with me. And it was as a result of how he was spending some of his time with his dad, or so I thought. So my son was used to coming to me with his, with his problems and chatting, etc. And when we had all been a traditional family, then I would have had a chat to dad and given him my view, and we would have worked out a plan together how to approach the situation that our son was, upset with. So I was operating in that space. On the other side, my ex wasn't seeing, and nor was my son showing him, that he was upset. He wasn't telling dad that he was upset about these things. He wasn't telling dad what he was telling me. So the ex understandably is going, you've lost the plot, Lise. This is just, you're making an issue out of it at the moment. He thought it was that my speaking up was the result of the new girlfriend being on the scene. And I was going to great lengths to say that that's not it. So I took my situation off to my coach, expecting to have a good old rant and that she would pat me on the back and, give me some tips or, listen to me and package me up, and I'd hear a few concepts about how I could handle it, and off I'd go. She didn't say that at all. She said to me, look, one, is your son safe when he is with his dad? I was like, yes, absolutely, of course. 2, does his dad love him? And I'm like, oh my God, absolutely. And she said, fantastic. She said, then you need to back away. And I went, what do you mean? She said, you need to back away, because when he is with his dad, if he is safe, if he is happy, and if he is well loved, then the time he is spending with his dad, his dad is responsible for those. Wow. Didn't like that at all, especially when I'm like, but it's impacting his relation. It's going to impact his relationship with his dad, and I want them to have a great relationship. And she's like, well, yes, you can want all of those things, and you can support your son when he's with you, and you can encourage him to talk to his dad, and you can encourage him that dad's going to want to know how you're feeling. She said, but actually, my ex, there are consequences to his action. I quite like the sound of that bit, I have to admit. There are consequences to his actions. And if you step out of it, then actually he can work out what those consequences are himself and whether he's happy with it, and he can change it or not. But if you're involved, you're behaving like a traditional family. I was mortified. I was angry. I really disagreed. I, got off my session, and I was quite flippant with an oh no, and probably a hair flick, knowing me. It's not going to happen. I know my son better, and I don't want that to happen to me, to my son, what happened to me with my father, all of that. But actually, there was just this, it just stayed with me for the next week or so. I couldn't get rid of the thought. And, often those things that stay with you are the things you kind of need to face. And I realized actually she was right, that I was behaving like a partner in a traditional relationship. And now that we were separated, my role had changed and the responsibilities had changed. Now his dad was involved 50% of the time in his life, and those decisions were his. So I called my ex and apologized.
Yeah.
And I gave him the space to step into it. And he did. When I backed off, interestingly, he stepped up.
Yeah, because men come from a place of fear, particularly if predominantly the female has been the caregiver. And they're like, oh my God, how am I going to live up to the expectations of myself and my ex-partner and the children of being able to be like mum?
Yeah.
Or dad if they're the caregiver. And the last thing they want, and one of the first things if they're not the initiator in a lot of cases, is am I going to get access to my children?
Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly. Realising that actually you've got to butt out of when they've got the kids, unless they're not safe or they're being kept up till midnight during the school week, and they're tired, or there's obviously some sort of abuse going on, etc. But you've got to back away, and that's really difficult when you've been the caregiver for 24/7.
That's really hard, Yeah, exactly. Especially when you've got all your own emotions in there, right, as well, and you're dealing with the separation from your child, and the separation from that behavior, and its habit behaving like that.
Absolutely. And I remember sitting in this apartment because we were nesting, leaving the kids in the home alone for a week on, week off.
Wow.
And friends are ringing me up saying, God, it must be so good not having your kids for a week. It'll be like you're on holiday. And I'm like, well, actually, it's not. I want them to be fighting around me right now,
Yeah. There's a lot of, silence can be very heavy and long when you're
particularly when you're vulnerable. Hey, when you're very vulnerable, you're like, oh my God.
And you worry and you care, and you haven't, you haven't necessarily seen the partner behave in that way. But I swear it was that was actually the defining moment when I knew I'd invested well in my divorce coach, because it really did probably change the nature of my relationship with my ex.
And the narrative changed the story.
Yeah, exactly. It provided, he actually stepped in and, then came to me for advice, and we worked out a solution together. So I guess in addition to men having fear, there's also this possibility that men can be quite stubborn.
Yeah.
And don't want to be told what to do, understandably. I mean, who does?
That's how you communicate it too, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
These are my thoughts, and I'd be really I'd really love your thoughts. You're a great father or a great mother, or, so a lot of it is how you communicate too, isn't it? The way you say
I mean,
it.
and when I apologized to him, I said, look, I know that you love him. I know that he is really safe with you. And I realized that I've been behaving as if I was your partner. And actually, I also realized now it's been pointed out to me that it's got nothing to do with me, and the consequences of your actions are your actions with him. And I know you want a great relationship. So I'm sorry, and I'm stepping out. But it's on the flip side, here we are 3.5 years in. And if I can tell this little story about my son, just a few months ago, we were cuddled up on the couch. Long live the cuddles. There's probably only a few months left of that. And he says, out of the blue, Mum, I've got the best life. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'm thinking it's not Christmas. There's no birthdays coming up. There's no reason for this to it's not the subject. We're not talking about it per se. And I'm like, why is that, darling? And he's like, well, look at us. I get my mummy dates with you, and we do lovely cuddly things, and we have a great time. And he's like, don't take this the wrong way, Mum, but if we were together with like a normal family, or like an old family as he calls it, then Dad would probably still be at work. But instead I get Dad dates now. Dad comes and picks me up from school. Dad comes to basketball. We go on adventures on the weekend. Like, I spend a lot of time with Dad, and don't think I would do that if we were an old family. We've got the best divorce family, because we would always talk about having, a crazy, happy divorce family was our new guide. And I thought, oh, that's cool. That's all worth it, that he's got the best of both of us.
And I mean, there you have it right there. That speaks volumes about the way that you've acted through this process. You're going to have no regrets in terms of that. It's always going to be difficult little issues that you have to, and little challenges, which everyone has in life, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's how you deal with it. And I think putting yourself in the other party's shoes and thinking, how would I be feeling from their perspective? How would I like to be treated? The golden rule, kindness and respect.
Yeah. Yeah. Which actually probably leads me on to my next point about holding yourself to account.
Yeah.
I mean, I was not that, I did try and hold myself to account and do well through it. But, like everybody, I wobbled and I fell at times. Yeah. And there were, times when I had to pick myself up and confront myself and go, actually, that wasn't very cool, Lisa. You need to do better next time. So that's quite normal. But, I think holding yourself to account is again came from my coach, was a really good reminder that, especially when you're in the challenging times, you might be negotiating the settlement, there might be money, houses involved. It could be about the parenting plan. There could be a third party there. It could be, any of those things. Those are the times in particular I think you need to take a moment, take a step back, and just hold yourself to account and just keep checking in that you're behaving in line with what your priorities are. So if you've got children and you've put in there your number one priority, then going, okay, this is the decision, or this is how I'm reacting in this moment. Is that in the best interest of the kids? Or if you don't have kids and, you want to hold yourself to account in terms of, when I'm 95 and I look back, I want to have held myself, with dignity and grace. Am I doing that? Am I going to regret this?
Yeah.
That was a biggie. Yeah. It's a biggie along the way.
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely.
And then the other one was, yes, invest in the help of experts. And as I mentioned, I kind of learned this one the hard way. I didn't have I had a prenup, or we had a prenup, and was very cognizant of the dollars. And my ex was further down the journey than me and wanted everything. He was like, it's pretty simple. We'll wrap it all up really quickly while I'm still in shock phase. So I didn't invest in going to a lawyer to check things beforehand until, we'd agreed everything. I didn't go and see a financial planner. I didn't go to the bank or consider all of the things I should have done financially before I wrapped everything up. I didn't get a divorce coach at the beginning. I came into a divorce coach about a year year and a half into it. Had I done those things, while there would have been an investment, and this is not trying to sell what we do, this is just out to everybody. You know, I was thinking, I don't know, I need to manage my money really well, and you know, I'm going to go into a one income, all of the things. I'm better not to spend my money. I know what I need to do. You just don't know what you don't know, though.
No.
With the benefit of hindsight, I should have invested in those things earlier on. I would have saved money in the long term, and the process would have been clearer, easier, smoother. And I think I would have just felt more supported, right? In those
you need your team around you when you go through this.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that's the same for you, and that's how Equal X's came about, right? Your own experience.
Oh, yeah, no, I had no idea how to manage my finances. I had a supplementary credit card and paid the odd bill, but really didn't have full visibility over everything that we owned and owed, which makes it very difficult, because you want to, particularly when you're the initiator and you're not prepared when you leave, you haven't got that information and you don't know where to find it.
Yeah.
The last thing you want is to end up having to go to court to get full and frank disclosure of everything, because your partner, who wasn't the initiator, is in a different stage and space in terms of that grief process, and feeling shocked and blindsided and, you know, what the hell. So it's really important. But I think too, if you can get a divorce coach, but also a counsellor or a psychologist, is really important to have by your side going through this, because you really, really need that support. And you do have to invest some money into that. Even if you have to borrow money from family and pay them back at some stage, I really highly recommend it. Yeah.
Thankfully, that's something I did do was counselling, and I swear it, you know, saved me along the way, got me through those very dark, long nights to the next morning, and some of those strategies, and just to know that what I was thinking and what I was feeling actually was normal. That was a huge relief in that process. So yes, invest in the experts. You know, invest in a support team. It's like preparing for a marathon, you know, where you've got your nutritionist and you go to the physio and you've got your gym membership. It's the same kind of thing, right? It's
not a fun marathon. I always felt like I was being dragged across hot coals, you know.
Well, kind of similar. It can feel like that, right? Divorce separation marathon training. Yeah.
My limit is 3 minutes. My limit is 3 minutes of running. So yeah.
Oh, there we go. That might say a lot. But you know, we don't think twice about doing that. No. We don't think twice about having a personal trainer, you know, all those things, or going to the beauty therapist once a month, you know, or a massage regularly for our well-being, or our gym membership. It's the same kind of thing. There's a journey. You want to go from here to here. So build a support network around you.
Yeah, and going through this process, you've got to, you know, find your identity, find your purpose again, because you've obviously been in a relationship that hasn't been serving you well. So you're trying to pigeonhole into being somebody that you're not. So you've got to learn again how to love yourself first. And that means putting yourself as a priority, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And that's the big focus on the wellness, mental health is massive. If you need support, reach out. Don't be scared. It's actually going to benefit you and the family moving forward.
And it's normal for that. Probably leads me on to that last point. My last point about, you know, divorce and separation doesn't need to define you as a negative thing. It is an opportunity. It doesn't feel like it. And oh my God, the people who used to tell me, you know, it will pass. It's all cliche, and you'll feel better soon, and all of those things, which are all very true. But when you are in it, it's so hard to believe that. And there were times when I'm normally quite an optimistic person, but I just was really struggling with hope. Like, what does the future hold now? Like, all your dreams are, and I'm independent too. And I thought I did have my own dreams, and I had, you know, my own interests. But suddenly that foundation is gone, and all your family dreams and hopes and plans, and they're all gone. And when I this is one of the reasons I did go and find a coach, because I was stuck. People would say, like, I'd come out of the worst of it, but I was stuck. And I'm like, what does my future hold now? I don't even know how to dream. I don't even know how to feel joy or happiness anymore. Will I ever feel those things? Let alone, everyone starts saying to you when you're going to be dating or so, I couldn't think of anything worse. Oh my God, being with somebody for a very long time, that's a whole kettle of fish, different kettle of fish. But I did realize that actually it is an opportunity to rebuild. You get to know yourself intimately around your best and worst, which is awesome. And I accept her now, and I embrace her now. I might have beat her up a little bit beforehand, but now I'm like, hey, you survived. You did the best that you could. So where are we going from here? And that's exciting.
Very exciting, because you come from a place of staring down this dark tunnel, which you can't see you can't see what it's at the end of it. But you're the one who creates what that looks like.
It's just getting people to that space, right? And I don't know how we convey that to our clients and everyone out there without sounding cliche, because like you said, when you're in it, you can't see out of it. But in the dark moments, if you're listening to this, in the dark moments, and you're doubting everything, just know that there's people out there who've been through it and have come out stronger. And I'm living my best life yet. I've never been happier. I had a great life before, and it's not to take away what I've done and my ex or my family, any of that. I have had a great life, but I just am in it now. I just appreciate things so much more. I'm loving my life, and I'm doing what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, I know you. It's fantastic, and I think it is that old cliche that time is a healer, isn't it?
But it doesn't have to take so much time.
No. But
you don't have to wallow in it.
No, you don't.
You don't have to wallow in that time, right?
No, exactly. And so you've got to be accountable, not only to us if you decide to work with divorce coaches or other divorce coaches, but also to yourself. Life is not a dress rehearsal, is it?
No.
And so you've got to make the most of it every single day, each new day. And well, that has been a fantastic webinar, Lisa. It's been
we thought so. Hopefully some people out there did.
Oh, absolutely. And so Lisa would love to have a chat to you. If you're thinking about it in the back of your mind, if you're on the fence about leaving, even if you're halfway through the process, or even if you're at that stage where you've sorted the kids, you've had your settlement agreement certified, but you're wondering, so what about me now? What does that look like for me? And that is one of the areas that Lisa just loves working in, is transforming people after separation and divorce, and the new lives that they can create moving forward, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
So thanks everyone for joining us. It's been a long webinar, but we have loved having a chat, and we are sure that you'll find this really useful in some way. So look forward to chatting again to you all soon. Bye now.
Bye.